After a brief but productive break from live party line events, we are back with a vengeance for the summer. And I'm so excited that our first guest back after our break is the inimitable Amy Herzog. Welcome, Amy. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back.
And I'm so excited. The last time you were here to talk about Knit to Flatter, which I told you then that you were absolutely my style hero. I mean, and it actually gave me the courage to actually knit something myself as opposed to design something and then, like put it on a model and photograph it.
That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. The first time I've ever actually worn something that I knit, which was I have knit sweaters for myself. It's the first time I ever knit one that I wore. So, and then when your publisher told me that you had a new book coming out, and I was so excited to, oh, that's you. That's not you, Amy, is it? I was so excited to see what you were up to because she sent me a description of the book, and I thought, well, Knit to Flatter was pretty darn awesome. So let's see what this follow-up to that looks like. And I was not disappointed. This actually may be my favorite knitting book ever.
Aw, thank you.
Saying something, because I have a very large library. But so tell us how the Knitwear Love book came about.
I think that behind everything that I do is this goal to help people not only enjoy the process of knitting what they're knitting and appreciating what they produce as like finished objects, skill representations of our craft, but I'm such a super practical person. I really have this mission to help people enjoy getting use out of the things that they make. And I feel like that's easier to do for other people and harder to do for us. And so after Knit to Flatter came out and, I sort of felt like good about where things were fit-wise and visual elements-wise, the instigating event of me starting Knitwear Love was actually me looking through like a magazine that had come out, a knitting magazine that had come out, and thinking, oh, I want to knit all of those things for myself. And like I bought some yarn and I was going to do a project that wasn't my own design for once. And I don't know, along and around halfway through the swatching process for that project, I thought to myself, it's not actually that garment that you want, right? You want to be where that was filmed or where that thing was shot. You want to be the lady in that picture.
You want to be the girl in the picture.
Wear that. And I thought, there's an idea there. So that's sort of where Knitwear Love came from. Like, even if you've got the fit stuff and the visual element stuff aside, what are you going to wear? And is that what you're resonating with in this picture, or is there something else in that picture that is exciting you?
Yeah, and I'll bet because I did the same thing. The first two sweaters I knit because I just loved the design, and they were both turtlenecks, and I can't wear a turtleneck because I'm claustrophobic. But I loved the design, and they were actually both in Vogue Knitting, and they, and of course they're so beautifully staged and styled, and they were spectacular sweaters, which I take them out of the closet and think, wow, these look really nice. And then I put them back, on the shelf. And I'll bet if we ask, because I'm going to ask, I'll bet everybody in this room has knit something that is so clearly not anything that they would ever have worn, because we get taken by some detail.
Absolutely. And that's good, right? It's great to have aspirational things around us. It's a wonderful part, but you don't want to necessarily spend the money and the months of producing that garment only to then realize that you just wanted to be in Mallorca, right?
Yeah, exactly. She's done it. And I think, like so many books are patterns, it's like projects, and they're worn by models and they're shot in cool places. And so it's kind of, there's so much to love about this book. One, I love that the models are all normal sizes. Like They're not size 2s. You kind of get an idea of what sweaters look like on real people,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. But also it doesn't just start out with patterns. It actually starts out with style issues and like how to determine your style and how to figure out what it is that you would actually wear. And so I think we're going to like jump right into kind of the preview of the book. And so we can kind of talk about that as we go. And so you go through like 8 kind of basic like style categories. And this is just a page in the book that has 2 of them. So talk about how this came about, because it's really genius about
Thank
like
you.
figuring out what you'll wear.
Well, I feel like the first step in the crafting of that opening chapter was to realize that, I think all of us who design have this viewpoint that sweaters are really, any individual sweater design is made up of like a composite of different pieces. There's the silhouette, right? What if you traced the outline of that garment on a piece of paper, what would it look like? And then there are stitch patternings that are added to it. And then there's the fabric that it's made out of. And so I really wanted chapter 1 to start getting people to think about, what materials and stitch patterns and sort of style they love in their clothing, because any silhouette, any basic sweater shape can be turned into something that you would wear if you make it out of the right stuff. So that sort of led to, okay, well, what's the right stuff and how do you bin what people would be interested in? And so that's sort of where the styles came from. And I wanted to make little mood boards for each of those so that you saw the yarns that we had selected for the projects that were worked up in that style and the sort of pieces that we had in mind, that I had in mind when I designed those garments, if that makes sense. So you're showing vintage and casual, which is like my favorite set of mood boards. I had so much fun finding that stuff.
Yeah, and actually Sherry says that it's like a Pinterest mood board, which I guess, as for myself, I do this when I'm working on a book, but I don't do this for determining what I'm going to make myself, as I've just discovered how much fun it is to knit other people's patterns and not have to write anything down while I'm going or size it. I just like make it in one size and that's all I have to do. So, is that, to really kind of think about, color and pattern and like the things that you would put together with it. And you actually have 8 of these. You have vintage, casual, modern, bohemian, classic, sporty, romantic. I think I missed something. Did I miss something?
I wasn't counting.
But anyway, so you get the idea. So you kind of start with, I think by looking at these, you kind of get a feel for, which of these kind of speak to you. And I think for most people, there's more than one, or they're a combination of styles, right?
Absolutely. And it can morph through time too, right?
Absolutely.
When I left my corporate job to pursue the knitting stuff full time, my style definitely changed. I worked in a really like button up, super severe, very formal environment, and I would say that then my style was super classic because it was just sort of forced to be. But now that I get to dress myself, as it were, I've gone much more toward the sporty, funkier end of things. So yeah, definitely more than one would resonate, I would expect.
And I think that's true, because we all like we are where we are in life changes. When you have small kids and you're running around like a crazy person, you kind of probably aren't doing the bohemian thing. You're doing sporty casual because that's what your life looks like. And like I used to practice law, and I wore suits and pumps to work for decades. And what in the Great Purge of 2015, where I was getting rid of all my stuff that didn't bring me joy anymore, I mean, all my suits went to Salvation Army. It's just they're still hanging in my closet, and it's been years since I practiced law. But it's like that's so not my style. It wasn't then, but you had no choice, right? So
right. I hope that they'll be useful to people, both from the positive part of things, oh yes, this is totally me, but also really help clarify the stuff you shouldn't be knitting, right? When we put that vintage board together, I was like, this is beautiful. I love looking at it as a thing. That is really not who I am or how I dress. So like that lets me know, it gives me cues as to what I might be, when I might be looking at a pattern photo and thinking, oh, I love that, but not, it not being something that would be successful in my closet.
Yeah. And I think that's a really great point. And Shannon says this is a great idea. It forces you to think about what you want and like. Like, I love vintage couture. I live in the mountains half the year and play golf every day. So it's like, where am I going to wear vintage couture? So it doesn't fit my life. I think it's beautiful, but if I bought some beautiful vintage couture gown, it would just hang in my closet and I would look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would never wear it. And I think that's the thing with knitting, is because it is such an investment of our time, not just money, but our time to and I think you can get really discouraged if you end up with a closet full of sweaters that you never wear. You just take them out and fondle
or
them.
like the third time you can't wear it, you think, oh, well, clearly this just isn't for me. And that's so sad. I don't want people to think that, right? It's fantastic to walk around in garments that you've made for yourself that perfectly suit you, and to have someone say like, oh, you look amazing today. Where did you get that? That's such a good feeling.
Yeah. And I think when you wear something that you truly love and that is you, is that you just walk differently, your hair looks great. It's just, it's a good day, right? So I think.
And you know what to wear with it, right? When you go to get dressed in the morning, it's not like, oh, this is, what am I going to put with this? It's like, oh yeah, that'll go perfectly with these 3 things I already have. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like, that takes us to kind of the second section of the introduction, which is really kind of a worksheet in helping you figure out kind of what you really want to wear and what you really would wear. And you call it project versus clothing, which is totally, it's just brilliant. And then like one of the questions it asks is, what am I going to wear with this? Which if I had asked myself
what am I going to wear with this turtleneck?
before I knit those 2 turtleneck sweaters, it'd be like, oh, I'm never going to wear these. It doesn't matter. I mean, I could wear them with, jeans or black pants or whatever, but I'm never going to wear these because I cannot wear a turtleneck no matter what. So yeah. And Kate says it's the worst. You take all that time and it isn't really what you wanted in the first place. So, I mean, just from one of them was all bobbles and cables and stuff. So it's, it was a skill thing, but crap, so it's like, I love this, because if I had answered even 4 of these questions before, I would not have knit those sweaters. So it's really nice, because it just forces you to kind of, focus on really what's gonna work for you. And and actually one of the questions in here is, my biggest sweater pet peeve is when it touches my neck. Yeah. I laugh now, but I spent a lot of time on that sweater. But yeah, so I'm
so glad you like the questions. I really tried to have them approach the style question from different angles, so that even if you feel like you could come up with an answer of what you would wear with that, there would be another question that would clue you in that this is probably not going to make you the happiest in terms of being a garment in your wardrobe.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is like, when I look at that vintage style mood board, I think, oh, and I love the colors, I love the pictures, but when I answer the questions in here, that is totally not what I need to be knitting. Yeah, so I think that it really kind of helps save you from yourself before you start knitting. So I totally get it's knit, wear, and love. It's like you're actually going to knit something, you're going to wear it, and you're going to love it and feel good in it, which, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want that? So now you kind of take us through sort of 8 like basic styles of sweaters, and kind of show how you can make them fit the different styles. Once you kind of figure out where you fit in that style spectrum.
Right.
How to take
so the goal with the patterns was.
Oh, go ahead. No, go right
The
ahead.
goal with the patterns was really to say, okay, it's really not about that one instantiation of how the sweater looks in that pattern photo, that really you can take any silhouette and make it match the stuff that you did in chapter 1. You can make it whatever style that you want. And so I sort of came up with the idea of making these meta patterns where the pattern is a basic silhouette. It's written up in a bunch of different gauges. It has a bunch of different customizations that work with all the gauges. And then you can kind of take those blank numbers and put your own materials and spin on them.
Yeah, which is really nice because it's the difference in this book, because there are books that have just kind of like the Knits Men Want, which I'm knitting a sweater for my husband for, where it has a chart and it says, cast on, and you go down to your gauge, cast on 144 stitches, and then work 2 inches of this, whatever. But it doesn't. I think for a lot of people get nervous about making any kind of changes. It's like, well, what if I wanted that neck to be like a crossover V? What if I wanted that to be a shawl collar? What if I wanted, so that, and most of us don't really like to do the math to,
Yes.
to kind of figure that out. And Alicia says she loves the meta pattern idea, which I do too, because this really shows you, and it calculates all that math for you, which is nice. And it shows you what those different options will look like. It doesn't show you one pattern and then just give you the boxes to go along and figure out your, how many to cast on, how many inches to knit for, how many to bind off. It doesn't. It actually,
right.
you can
I think
see
it's hard.
the different versions.
Right. I think it's hard if you only saw any one of those pullovers. It would be hard to extrapolate from there what it could look like. But the hope is that by seeing 3 really different versions of the same pattern, the same sweater, that your imagination is excited a little bit and you can think, oh, I really like that color work, but I'd want it, worked in a crisper yarn so that it's, much more pixelated or whatever.
Yeah, and it's so funny because if you just looked at these 3 sweaters, like in a store, you wouldn't think that it was actually the same body.
Yeah.
It's, so you can really see the difference. And so with the class, and all of them through the book, all 8 of the styles are done with 3 different versions to really show you. Like, this is a classic button up the front. Well, classic is one of the styles, button up the front cardigan. And just looking at this, I wouldn't have thought these were, okay. Kate says you just blew her mind, by the way. So don't leave us yet, Kate. We're not done. So, but to see 3 different versions of this sweater, and based upon where you fall on that style spectrum, what really works for you is, it's really, like, I love this open front cardigan, but I really adore the one that ties in the front. And
yeah, I loved the cardigan chapter. So all of the sweater silhouettes have 2 different, I call them customization options, and that changes from silhouette to silhouette. So the pullover one, the neckline is one of the things you can swap out, which I think is the key to just how very different those look. I mean, it's not just the materials, but the necks are different. But the cardigan was one of my favorite chapters because they all have the same neckline. They all have long sleeves. Like, they're really the same sweater. And the only things we changed up were how you close it. Does it button or does it not or does it tie? And what the stitch patterning was on the garment. So they're really, more than any other chapter, like, those 3 sweaters are exactly the same pattern, but they look really different because of the materials that we used.
yeah, it's like you could knit yourself an entire wardrobe out of the same pattern, basically.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, because by the time you get to the 12th one, you probably can do it in the movie theater with the lights off.
I would guess.
I think so. So, and then
Not that.
Yeah. I think as long as your needles aren't metal, so they're not making noise and bothering the people around you, I think you're okay. So
Yeah, I've done it.
yeah,
It's totally normal.
yeah, I've done it. I've done it with bamboo ones, but yeah, don't try the ones that light in the dark. They'll actually give you a headache, and they drive people around you crazy. So, and then you take us to the vest pattern, which these are so cute. And this is the first one I have where it shows the avant-garde design. I think that was the eighth one that I left off of my list, for people who kind of like to push the edge a little bit with their
Yeah.
clothing choices. So yeah, I mean, this is crazy that this is the same pattern. So talk to us about this grouping here.
Well, I wanted to include, there's actually a vest, and we'll talk later, there's a tank too. I wanted those silhouettes to be represented because I think when we think sweater, we often think something that's much more involved. And a vest is a super practical wardrobe piece that is very like low intimidation and easy to accomplish sweater. Like there's no sleeves that you need to worry about setting in. It uses less yarn. It's quicker to knit. So I really wanted to make sure that just the versatility of that silhouette was included in the book somehow.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you. The avant-garde is like my favorite. It's got these big, like super geometric, bumpy cherries on them in this Aran weight yarn, and it's got a big collar and a zipper. It's one of my favorite sweaters in the book. I know I'm not supposed to have favorites. I'm supposed to like them all, but I really like that vest.
Yeah, you're allowed to have favorites. You're not supposed to have favorites among your children, but you can among others, I think. Well, and I think that's the thing too, is that, and it's really the things that you go back to over and over again and wear over and over again, no matter what's in your closet is, but then we don't knit that kind of thing. We knit like the crazy stuff we see in a store window that we're never going to wear. And I think this is great because if people are knitting stuff they'll actually wear, one is it's a great advertisement for the craft itself, but that it encourages people to continue to knit and other people to knit. And, if you have a closet full of sweaters that you never wear, it's just sad. Useful objects should be used, right? If you're a Marie Kondo fan, useful objects should be used or it's disrespectful. So, yeah, so the Roseanne says she loves that our avant-garde approach in such a basic shape. And, it's amazing. This is really where the details make the difference.
Yeah, it's when I was working up the avant-garde pieces, which are just, I don't know, I resonate with them. They're a personal favorite of mine. It's one of the styles I find really appealing. When I, looked online for inspiration, I make heavy use of Pinterest. So I love that someone earlier said that it was like the mood boards were like Pinterest boards. I was really struck by how much of the clothing that really pushes the edge is simple, almost severe, with like one detail that's really the focus of the piece. And I think that with knitting, as knitters, as crafters who like to mix it up and try different things all the time, we can lose sight of the power of having that one really prominent feature in a piece.
Yeah. So, and what a difference. I mean, just that texture makes such a huge difference. So, yeah. And so Shannon says she loves the classic vest as well. She asked if this is a good first design project.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't say enough about how fantastic I think vests are as first sweaters. And the classic is I've seen it, a few people have knitted up already, which is wonderful to look at, and they all look great. People have used different yarns. Someone worked it up in the Aran weight gauge, which is the gauge that the avant-garde is shown in, but of course the numbers work for all of them, and it looks so nice.
Yeah, and Sherry says she loves how that classic one just buttons in the middle, which gives it such a nice, like, hourglass creating shape to it. Very, very, very flattering. Really pretty.
Thank you.
And then, and this is our first look at Bohemian. I have to say, when I first saw that sweater, I was like, I want that sweater.
I love the way it looks. I'm never going to wear that stuff, but I love the way it looks.
Yeah, and for someone like me, the neckline is really, it's like that cowl neckline, which is this style of sweater with a cowl neckline is really, that's kind of like my go-to. I really like it. It's like having a scarf on when you wear your sweater. So
I love a cowl.
There's just something about it, and they're just so flattering, I think, on every body shape. And, whether you have a long, skinny, duck neck, or I guess swan neck, long, skinny swan neck, get with it, Beth, or whether you don't, it just gives you that illusion of, shows a little bit of your collarbones, which are always nice, and it's just really pretty.
Yeah, it's such a graceful silhouette, isn't it? I love a cowl.
It
Love a
is.
cowl.
And on this one, we see our first look at the Bohemian. For those who are, for like me, who were um, kind of raised in the age of Aquarius, that it has kind of a little bit of a sort of a hippie West Village, Greenwich Village kind of feel to it. Just
Yeah, and that I feel like that comes 90% from the yarn, which is this beautifully like nubby, crunchy silk wool blend. So it's nice and lightweight too. Um, I wanted to make sure that one of the cowls was a little more weather independent. Like cowls have a lot of fabric in them, right? So they can tend to be really warm sweaters that you look to in the wintertime. But the Bohemian one uses a yarn that's so cross seasonal. I love the yarn that we used for that.
yeah, and actually the Sherry was saying she loves the sleeves on that Bohemian one, which I agree. I am a huge fan of bell sleeves because when you move your arms, you just feel like you're graceful with
They're
that.
beautiful, aren't they? I love belt sleeves too. The sleeves obviously are one of the things that is different in that's the customization option in the cowl.
Yeah,
Sleeves
and
are pretty
and Kate
stylish.
says she hasn't attempted this neckline yet, but she is now excited to try. So, and who knows, Kate, you might win a book today here or on Facebook later this week. So you hang in there. You could be knitting your very own copy shortly. So, and then I love tunic length sweaters. Even though I don't wear mine with leggings, I wear them over, jeans or black pants or whatever. But I I just like the length. There's something so snuggly about a tunic length sweater. And so I think this is our first look at sporty, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah. So tell us about this grouping.
Um, I love a tunic. I think that it's a silhouette that's super well represented in a store, but as intimidating as sweaters can be because they have so much yarn in them and they take so much time, like tunic sweaters, triply so because they're long. There's a lot of fabric there. So I think that they're less represented in the patterns that are out there. So I wanted to make sure that I included the silhouette because it's such good clothes, especially now. I feel like it's a pretty modern silhouette right now. The sporty's actually my favorite of the three. I made sure to make that sample in my own size so that
Oh,
I could
good for
wear
you.
it.
Yeah, Savannah Gal says she likes the length and she likes with a V-neck and I think especially when the sweater is longer, I think it's less overpowering on the body if the neckline is lower as well, because there's I don't know, something. I went to Catholic school, something nun-like about tunic length with a turtleneck and long sleeves that just seems
I agree.
it just seems like there's too much fabric. But
Yes.
these are such great layering pieces as well, which is what I really love about that.
Thank you.
So
The model in the casual one actually wanted to take it home. I thought that was a good sign.
yes, it's always nice when the models want to keep them. So, and then wrap sweaters are so flattering. And,
They are.
and I think some people, especially women who have, bustage, are a little nervous about wearing a wrap sweater when actually it really it just gives you such a nice fall away line, even if you have, you know, more than an A cup size breast. And as these
Yeah,
women are
it's a really
really,
flattering silhouette.
yeah, exactly. And it falls nicely to the hips. It's not like gripping you in the middle. It's if assuming you're knitting the right size, which we'll talk about because you give detailed information on how to properly measure yourself. And then also there's a YouTube video on that, so which we'll talk about in a little bit. So tell us about this grouping and the kind of the detail change up on these.
Yeah, the customization options on these, I guess if you squint your eyes right, there are three, but really, I altered the sleeves because I think sleeves make such a big difference in terms of how a sweater looks. So we have long sleeves where the sporty ones have little tucks, like you sort of pleat almost the fabric to make it look ruched toward
Oh,
the bottom.
cool.
And then the Bohemian one has a little kick bell under the elbow, and the modern one is just very clean elbow sleeves. So that's a customization. And then the way the wrap closes is different in each of the sweaters, which I had a lot of fun with. So the bohemian style is tied with like fringes on the tie, because that really spoke to me for that style. But the modern one has snaps that are hidden, so it's a completely
really
clean,
clean.
smooth look. And the sporty one has a zipper, which I just love. Love zippers.
Yeah, and Shannon says too. Alicia says that she loves wrap sweaters because her waist is smaller than her hips, and so it's I think it just flatters everybody. If you have a
They
tummy,
really do.
it's still flattering because you get a nice smooth line, and yeah. And Shannon says she loves that side zipper treatment on the sporty wrap, which is just, I mean, that looks like something you would buy in a high end department store. I mean, it's not. People aren't going to believe you knit that sweater. Which is the great thing. That's the greatest compliment, right? When people ask you where you got your sweater. It's like,
It's pretty nice.
It
feels pretty good, I have to say.
Came from my own two little hands. So, and then we talked earlier that you included the tank shape, which is definitely different than the vest. A vest shape, how it fits is different. But and of course, I love that. I love a lower neckline too. So we see the avant-garde, which that's got like drop stitches in it, right?
It does, yeah. That's actually the one I'm wearing today. I thought it would be
there
fun to
you
wear
go,
this.
girl. Yeah, I like the wider ribbing around the neck too. I think that's really, because you usually see like 3/4 of an inch, but with the wider ribbing around it, it's a really cool design detail. And then the modern and the sporty. And does she have a little hood on the back of hers?
Yeah, it's a little hoodie.
Oh, cute. So
It looked like we didn't manage to get a shot with the hood up because of the way we styled her hair, but yeah, it's a little hood.
so cute with a kangaroo pocket.
With a kangaroo pocket. Yeah. The customization options in the tank were really all about the detailing, the finishing, the stitch patterning. The modern one has stripes that are sort of positive negative.
I see that. I think that's so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, where the front and back. And I think this is really where this book is a completely different animal than, the basic kind of blank pattern, here's your gauge cast on, is it really shows you a very cool design detail. Like even just the placement of those stripes creates a very different sweater than if the stripes were all lined up. And
exactly. And it would, if you changed the color palette of them only, like it would look different still, right? If it were a navy tank with white stripes, it would feel much more classic and less modern than the sort of oatmeal fuchsia combination that we worked it up in.
Yeah, very cool. So, and then our last design group is the bolero or crop sweater. And, it's so funny because I think for a lot of women who have, relatively large chests, they think, oh, I can't wear a short sweater like that because, I've got too much up on the top. And these women are showing you that's not true.
Yes, two of them are pretty busty, actually.
Yes, two of them have a lot going on up there, and it's really interesting, especially in the romantic one where you see it over a flowy dress, how the sweater itself is actually creating the shape for her body, and which is really lovely. Tell us about this group.
I wanted to include a bolero. It's funny, I feel like people are very polar in terms of how they feel about boleros. Some people really love them with like a fierce passion, and some people are like, oh, whatever, never going to do it. But I think that they can be really versatile in the closet, and so I wanted to include one to sort of help people, I don't know, imagine what a bolero could look like beyond the way you might imagine it when they were really prominent in fashion in the 80s and early 90s in a very particular way, like very structured. And I wanted to offer 3 other interpretations of that, because really they make the perfect pieces to go over dresses. They make, great statement pieces if you're into pushing the boundaries of style a little bit. So yeah, I wanted to include different versions of the bolero to sort of, even if people weren't ready to knit one yet, imagine them in a
But I also
way.
think, especially like when you look at the vintage or the romantic one, it's really, knit in a fancy like evening yarn, right? It's a
Yes.
great alternative to a shawl, not to mention you don't have to worry so much about your dog, your cat, other people's keys or whatever catching on your featherweight wedding ring shawl and
Yes.
destroying a year and a half's worth of work. I mean, and it uses less yarn, so it's a great place to use those, luxury yarns that you may not want to spend on a long sleeve tunic length sweater.
Yeah, it's true. The romantic in particular was knit in a really fine, elegant lace weight held double. And the vintage is sort of at the opposite end of that scale. I worked it up in a bulky yarn and like I don't know, fun behind the scenes fact about the book. I actually knit that sweater in a day.
Oh my God. Yeah, and
What happens when you work with a bulky yarn?
that's true. It's quick. And
Very quick.
The texture and the buttons like will make all the difference in the world if you knit that in like a boucle yarn and like use some like vintage buttons on it. I mean, it's just there's like it's really amazing how versatile that piece is. And yeah, Savannah Gal says she is really connecting with that vintage bolero. It's nice and elegant, and really depending on the color and the yarn and the buttons you choose. I mean, it could go over blue jeans or it could go over an evening gown. I mean, it could go with anything. So
yeah, right. If you knit the vintage silhouette, but in like a dark gray sort of silk wool blend, yeah.
Yeah. So Alicia says she sold on the one day vintage bolero. So Alicia, fingers crossed for you too. Between here and Facebook, this will be going home with a book. So yeah, I think any sweater you can knit in a day is great. Is great in my book. So yeah, so there's just a glimpse for everybody, but it's just what an amazing idea and what a beautiful book. So all right, so now people are going to know where to keep in touch with you, Amy. And first of all, you could oddly go to amyherzogdesigns.com, which is Amy's website, and you'll so you can see what's going on. Amy, you teach workshops.
Yep.
And
all over the country.
Yep. And in October you'll be in Mid-Coast, Maine, which is actually a nice time to be in Mid-Coast.
It is. I grew up there where we run our fall retreats, and it is just about the most perfect time of year. End of September, beginning of October. Yeah, the registration for that just went live today, actually. So
oh, great. So you can probably...
My mind is there.
Yes. So, and you'll see that Amy here on her website is talking about the fact that she's actually chatting with me today. So, which we just did. So, so you can keep track of Amy here. And then this is just the most crazy, wonderful thing. It says hi propane. I have an account. Yeah, it's custom fit. Which is you can actually this is really crazy to me is that you can and Amy shows you how to take your measurements properly, but you can take your measurements, you put it in, you choose what kind of a sweater, you make some design choices, how you want it to fit, whether you want it close or whether you want it average, and then you get a pattern. All the math is done for you.
In your gauge. So I came to knitting from technology. I worked in computer security for 15 years before I left that job last year. And the more I taught and the more I wrote after Knit the Flatter, the more I engaged with knitters, the more I heard over and over again, like, I would really like to wear a sweater, Amy, but I'm just not interested in doing that kind of math at the end of my day when all I want to do is pick up my needles and knit something soothing. Like, you've got me, emotionally with the sweater, but practically speaking, it's just not happening for me. And I, coming from tech, I thought, well, look, computers are really good at math. There ought to be a way for the computer to do that hard part for you. So that's sort of where custom fit came from. What if the pattern numbers were written to your body and your gauge instead of the other way around and you having to match it all the time?
Yeah, and I think I know so many knitters who don't knit and wash their gauge swatches, and then they're so sad afterwards. But there's some people who always knit tight or always knit loose, and you actually create the fabric you want in your gauge swatch, and then the pattern is written for you and your
Yeah, that's right. I think we don't like swatching because it's like this impediment to casting on that we fail often, right? I mean, I was there as a knitter, right? You try to match gauge and you switch to 7 different needle sizes and none of it works. And so it's much easier to do the swatching when you know that whatever it winds up being, that's okay. That's what the numbers will be created from.
Yeah, that's great. Savannah Gal says quite a few of the ladies in her knitting guild use custom fit, and they're fans. So, which actually I've already figured out because I'm gonna order a pattern for myself because I just hate doing the math. And I told myself this year I was giving myself a year where I was only gonna knit for myself and my family. I was only gonna knit other people's designs. And I would, because that's how I fell in love with knitting. I don't want to have to rip out. I don't want to have to keep track. I don't want to have to do any math. And I want a tunic length V-neck sweater that I'm going to knit in Fair Isle for myself. And it's just, yeah.
You got it.
I got it. So
we can do that.
Yes, I know you can. So this is such a cool idea. And it's technology has so changed, I think, the knitting world. YouTube has been crazy for being able to up your skills and, really up people's knitting mojo because they have access to all this information. But, if you have to actually come up with a plan that actually does all the work for you, you can get any sweater you want designed just for you, which is so cool. And if you have this book too, then you'll actually know kind of what you'll wear in addition,
what to make it out of,
which is pretty cool. So, sorry, Susan, I just muted you. Anyway, so and speaking of YouTube, because I think that's one of the most interesting things that ever happened to me is, you think you know what bra size you wear. If you go to a real store that has a trained bra fitter, you end up wearing something totally different than what you thought you were, because I think most of us just don't know how to measure themselves, so
yeah. And it's not complicated. Like, I don't want people to be scared about it. It's not complicated. You do it once and then all of your sweaters actually fit. Like, it's a scary proposition maybe, but it's not that hard and it's pretty painless, and then it's over.
Yeah, and the kind of the other thing too is, I think that's kind of the cool thing in custom fit and also in the book is unless you want that sweater to fit right to your body, you are not going to knit it to your bust measurement, So I think that's one of those things is when you look at patterns like in magazines and stuff, and it'll say, finished bust measurements 32, 36, 40 is, if you have a 36-inch bust, but that sweater is actually designed to be worn with 6 inches of ease, if they don't tell you that, you're going to end up with a totally different garment. So I think that's kind of the nice thing is you actually get all that information in between the video and the book and the custom fit program. So as you actually get a sweater that will fit you the way it's kind of designed to fit. So yes,
and differently in different parts of your body, right? Like it should fit differently. It's okay if it's a little snug in the bust, as long as it's not that snug in the waist. As long, you know what I mean?
Like it should gripping fit your hips and making you look, right. You don't want to see all the lumps and the bumps, assuming you have them. So yeah, Savannah Gal says she did the same thing. She actually got professionally measured for undergarments, and it was like, it's like magic. So, but you can find Amy's videos on how to measure yourself. So, and also about swatch repeats, and you see there's all kinds
measuring your gauge, and hopefully there's lots of good stuff there.
Yeah, so that, because I think the important thing is when you start is you need to know what your real gauge is. You need to know what measurement you really want. And so all those good things, technology, our friend, YouTube, thank you very much. So for those who are on Ravelry, you can also see Amy's 137 design.
I don't know when it got up that high.
Yeah, so there's like you're up to 6 pages now, so there you go. Oh. And then and Craftsy talking about how the internet has kind of changed crafting of any kind is Craftsy, and their online classes are, Amy's a teacher there, and you can take, she's got her knit to flatter class there, so you can take that as well. Jesus, Amy, you're just everywhere. And then, of course,
Alicia says that she loved the Craftsy class. Thank you. I'm so excited that you liked it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, there's, and they do such a good job at Craftsy too on their classes. They're really, you're welcome. They're really just really, really well done, and they have such great teachers there. So it's a terrific resource for knitters and crocheters. And Amy Herzog Designs on Facebook, where you can keep up with what's going on here. And I see, or just have here that you can go sign up now.
I can see an outtake from one of our recent photo shoots on that page that you have up right now.
Oh, Bonnie, is this you here?
Yeah, the wind.
Is that the big? Yeah. Yeah. As somebody with curly hair, I feel your pain there, girl. So, and then I actually have this on my iPad because, it's weird. I'm really good at math. I just didn't enjoy it when I'm knitting. I just want to knit.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, you don't fail some kind of life test if you'd rather knit than do calculations. Like,
thank you very much. Thank you. I would just like to knit my buttonholes and not actually have to chart them out and figure out, like, half above one, half below one, all the ones in between. I just don't even want to think about it. So, so this is, and you've got like other things in the works here, but you can definitely tell that the tech part is, is one of the arrows in your quiver. This is the Knitter's Toolbox, which is, this is such a cool thing for your, and you have it in the iTunes store. So is it all for iOS? It's all for iPad, or do you have an Android version yet?
We're working on the Android version, but so the way apps are developed, like there's no, the languages don't cross over, so you have to write two apps basically from the ground up. So we're working on it, but it's not done yet. So this is a new app that just has a bunch of not sweater specific or anything, just general purpose knitting calculations that you need to do all the time. So it'll space buttonholes, whether they're on a cowl or a baby sweater or whatever. There's a little gauge widget where if you know any two of how big you want the thing to be, what your gauge is, and then the stitch or row count will tell you the third. So like if you know your gauge with this yarn and you know how big that you want that sock to be, it will tell you how many to cast on. Or if you know that because of the lace repeat you're working, it needs to be this certain number of stitches, and you know the gauge you're getting with it, it will tell you how big the thing is going to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then there's a calculator that will place shaping that will sort of spread it evenly across some number of rows, and then not how many stitches to pick up along an edge, not only like the number, whatever, 167, but, oh, by the way, that's 2 out of every 3. Which is the way that I always think about it.
Really helpful. When I get something that says pick up 248 stitches around the neck,
right?
It's like, right. Well, all right, except that it's a scoop neck, and so the front and the back are different. And so how many of those are on the back, and how many of those are on the? I mean, it's just, yeah.
Or even just an edging around a scarf or a shawl or a baby blanket, right? The whole thing. We have to pick up stitches all the time as knitters, and it's less helpful. It's more helpful, I should say it this way, to be told that's 3 out of every 4. You know?
Very, very, very helpful. So yeah, Shannon says it looks amazing. You need to get it. Honestly, it's $5, and just to be able to knit in a moderately relaxed, semi-brain dead way, which is,
right?
You knit because it's very zen. It's very relaxing. It's repetitive. But especially if you start, you're figuring out your buttonholes, and then you start knitting and you think, geez, this doesn't seem right, and that's why I always end up having to chart it out and to do my measurements. I hate that. So just the buttonhole thing is worth it to me, more than worth it. So this is available now on for your iPad. It's Knitter's Toolbox, and if you just put Amy Herzog in in the iTunes store, you can find it. And Sherry says, "Yeah, when I get home from work, no math."
Yeah,
I
that's
agree. I
fine.
think there's a point in the day where you just want to relax, like have a glass of
I
wine, work on a
and
sweater.
like I feel the same way, right? By the way, as the person who does knitting math for her job, when I'm done with the day, just like to sit
Yeah,
down and knit.
just like relax. You don't have to think too much about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good thing. So, anyway, and then so if you're not lucky enough to win a copy of the book today here in the live event or this week on our Facebook page, because that giveaway will actually start tomorrow, is that first of all, you need to call your local yarn store because we want to support them. And also, they need to carry this book because we want to make sure lots and lots and lots and lots of people buy it. Because who knows, there might be a volume 2, Amy. Maybe
No
with
comment.
8 more like basic
Meta
things
patterns.
in it or something. Yeah, you just never know. But so we want lots and lots and lots of people to buy this book. And actually, this will be one of the very few books that I duplicate for my cabin. So I'll have a copy in both places because I'm just in love with this book. So, but if your local yarn store or you live in a place where you poor thing, don't have a local yarn store, which there are places in the country without yarn, which is a very sad thing, state of affairs.
Very sad.
Yes, the Affordable Yarn Act. That's what we need. If I were president, we'd have an Affordable Yarn Act. So anyway, you can come over to planetpearl.com and click on the books link, and you'll see Knitwear Love is right here. And if you click on it, it'll take you to Amazon. And if you go through our bookstore, we get the tiniest little commission, but it does help. It helps pay for like the interface for GoToMeeting for these live events. So we always appreciate that. So, Amy, oh my gosh, just so much. And I'm going to blubber now because I'm such a huge fan, but
Oh,
I'm going to fall all over myself and embarrass myself. But, I thank you, for writing this book because I think this can be life-changing for knitters, which
thank you so much for inviting me to chat with you guys.
that is, yeah, Kate says, thank you, thank you. I agree. I think I would do that 3 times, Kate. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, and I know you'll be back to talk about volume 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wouldn't miss it.
Thanks so much. And then, of course, people in the room, don't go away because Amy's going to help me give away a book. And for those who are coming back and watching this later on YouTube, if it's still the week of May, what is today? I don't even know, May 18th. If you run to Facebook, you can probably enter to enter into a random drawing to win your very own copy. So your odds are way better if you come live though. So I just saying, if you really want better odds of winning a book, this is where you go. So thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming live today, and hang in there because you're about to get a chance to win a book.
Thank you.